and welcome to another expert interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP Online Sales Magazine and Pipeliner CRM. And today I'm joined by Mike Schultz of the Rain Group. Hey, Mike.
Hey, John. How's it going today?
Good. And Mike's in Massachusetts today. I'm over here in San Diego having a bit of a heat wave all of a sudden for some reason. But hey, 85 degrees. Can't complain about that. I guess it's a little colder where you are, is it?
A little bit. There was the biggest deep freeze that we've had in years, and then it warmed up. And they say if you live in New England and you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. And that's what it's been.
Excellent. Well, Mike is president of the Rain Group. He's director of the Rain Group Center for Sales Research, best-selling author, Rainmaking Conversations, Inside Selling. But today I wanted to talk to Mike about this prospecting white paper that they have just released from the Rain Group. So, Mike, let's face it, prospecting is a word that normally makes salespeople break out in a cold sweat, okay? So what insights do you have on prospecting that may be going to help salespeople this year?
Sure. Let's start backing up. Just what did we look at? What did we study and why? So we wanted to know what it's like for buyers who are sold to every day, what that experience is like. Do they give people meetings that they've never met before? If so, what does the seller do that actually gets them to take a meeting? And from the buyer's perspective, if they dismiss a seller as either not credible with them or that they don't want to work with them, what does the seller do to get dismissed? And if they have the meetings, do these meetings actually turn into business? So we studied 488 buyers that represented $4.2 billion worth of purchasing power across 25 industries and around the world. We had good representation from Americas, EMEA, and APAC. And we learned a lot from them. And we also studied 489 sellers who at least a part of their job is prospecting. What works for you when you get meetings? What doesn't? And for those that got better meetings and had better conversions into sales, what did they do differently from the ones that fumbled?
So what were some of the surprises maybe that you initially got on the buyer side?
Yeah, so I think some of the key things we learned from the buyers are that they want to hear from sellers. And they want to hear early in the buying process. We asked, when did you want to hear from sellers? And there's a lot of research from the corporate executive board that the buyers are so far along, they're not going to contact you until the end. And most of the buying process is done digitally now from Serious Decisions. Like, all right, well, let's talk to the buyers and find out what they have to say about this. 71% of the buyers that took meetings, and that was 82% of all of the buyers accepted meetings from sellers who reached out when the conditions are right. 71% of them wanted to hear from sellers when I'm looking for new ideas or possibilities to get stronger results to improve my business. And 62% said when I'm actively looking for a solution to fix or solve a problem. So really early on. To be a lot less, where it was only 49% when I'm analyzing a situation, only 30% after I've sent out a request for proposals. They want to hear early. So, well, why aren't more sellers connecting them? Well, it turns out that the buyers don't find sales meetings valuable. 58% of the buyers said that they didn't find most meetings with sellers to be valuable. Only 42% did. So I think the buyers are there. They're waiting for you to reach out. And if you reach out in the right ways, they'll take meetings with you. It's just sellers aren't actually doing.
So do you think, just on that interesting statistic, because as you say, the research over the last number of years and the conventional wisdom that's out there now is that buyers go through the process and they're so much further into the process and they don't want to be bothered before the end of it. But as you say, a lot of them do if you reach out in the right way. So do you think to some degree sellers and maybe selling organizations have taken those statistics on board too much and have, sort of relied too much on, maybe, inbound marketing or, digital outreach as opposed to going out and figuring out how they can get in early in the sales process?
Oh, yeah, it gives them an excuse. It gives them a reason to say, oh, prospecting, that isn't how I should be spending my time. Oh, you can't even prospect anymore. You can't get through. That's actually one of the things that we found is that the myth of it's impossible for sellers to get through. We looked at all the factors that affected from the buyer's perspective whether they took a meeting. The top ones were the need for the product or service either now or in the future, and that I currently have a budget.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sellers can influence those. If you actually have something, and a lot of us are selling things that buyers should be doing, they just don't know enough about it. It's not on their radar screen because they don't know what we know about the impact we can have. Well, if you can introduce them to the idea, they might not think that they need your consulting service, but they're trying to achieve X kind of growth or Y kind of savings. And if you can show them how you can do that, then they're going to need the product or service because it aligns to a strategic imperative that they have. And a lot of budgets come from an internal driver saying, here's an investment activity that we can make. Let's actually drive forward and do that. Well, how do they get these ideas? Well, they get them from sellers, you might think. We studied whether a purchase was something that a buyer had to buy or whether the purchase was to invest in getting a better result in something.
Mm-hmm.
75% of the purchases were an investment activity. I didn't have to buy, but it was a good idea to do something. And then the question was, how many of these ideas do you get from sellers? I think it was something like 16%.
Wow.
It's a huge opportunity for sellers to inspire buyers with ideas, create their own budgets, and drive the need. Another 63% of buyers said that they were strongly influenced by whether or not the provider offers to share something of value.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get a meeting, you can share something of value. What did the buyers value? The more senior the buyer, the more they valued ROI cases.
Right.
The buyers valued 100% content customized to them.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely positively hated and dismissed not just spam emails that say, here, buy this, but even the ones that are customized with my name and my company that's on obvious kind of mail merge. They hated that too.
Mm-hmm.
But literally took the time to say, I've been looking at your company's strategy. I saw your last investor presentation. You said A, B, and C. With B and C, we've really been able to make a huge difference. I'd love to, as a way of introducing ourselves, share with you the results of our big research project on what makes B and C really work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I'll take a meeting. And if you hop onto their LinkedIn profile and say something about, hey, it looks like we know 3 people in common. How well do you know blank? They'll know energy and effort was put in to understand them, their needs, and to reach out to them. Those are the kinds of things that got meetings. And you're actively hurting your brand if you do it the other way.
Right. So it sounds to me that what you have found is basically the salespeople who are prepared to put in the hard work, who are prepared to do the research, understand their buyer, understand who their buyer is, and figure out how they might be able to deliver something of value early on in a sales process, are the ones who are more likely to win the business.
Those are the ones that are not just more likely to win the business, but those are the ones more likely just to get a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that were more likely to win the business is we studied the factors that influence the buyer purchase decision. So a lot of times people would say to us, and we wanted to see if certain myths were true. Is the conventional wisdom true or not? And what are you supposed to do with it, whether it's true or not? So one of the things is like, oh, inbound leads, they have a need. They know that they want to purchase something, so I can talk to them. And then they're going to buy something. But cold meetings, they never convert to sales wins. Actually, if the buyer said that the seller focuses on the value they could deliver to me, the seller collaborated with me, the seller educated me with new ideas and perspectives, if they provided a valuable insight related to my industry, and if they deepened my understanding of my needs, all of these were 92% or higher of all the respondents said that those affected whether or not they purchase. So if you do these things, you can affect the purchase decision. We rated from the sellers their opinion of how strongly their company focused on driving value through the sales process. And the value-driven respondents, we analyzed that in a number of different ways related to value. We asked them just to rate their prospecting effectiveness. The value-driven respondents said that they were excellent, very good, or good at prospecting 62% of the time, and the non-value-driven respondents less than 40% of them said that they were. It's a huge difference of focusing on value. So if you can focus on value, really understand that, and not pay lip service. Every company says, "Oh,
Sure.
value." Yeah, well, some of them are really better at it than others, and some of them say that. But then at the end of the quarter, the sales managers are running around saying, "I don't care what you have to do. I don't care what discounts you have to do. Close that sale, or your job's over."
Right.
Well, you're not really focusing on value. You're focusing on yourself, your pipeline, and your own parochial needs.
So what were some of the other maybe surprises that the research came up, either, endorsing some conventional wisdom or contradicting it, or just something was there anything out of left field?
Yeah, for sure. I would say it is way more common to find an article these days with the title "Cold Calling is Dead" than any other title. And I think that is a popular title because you can point to a lot more inbound activity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a popular title because a lot of people have a huge emotional response to prospecting. They don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for reasons to believe they don't have to use the phone. Well, it turns out, how do buyers prefer to be contacted? And how often do they say sellers actually contact them like this? In terms of how they prefer to be contacted, preferred method is 80% said by email.
Mm-hmm.
The next one down from phone call, direct mail, presentation, speech, exhibit, LinkedIn, text message, voicemail message, social media, and others. The next one down was phone.
Mm-hmm.
50% of buyers, 49%, said they prefer to be contacted by phone.
Right.
Now, the higher up you went, the more senior the person, the more they wanted you to call them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of mid-level and junior people who are afraid of the phone on the buyer's side. It's just send me an email. Plus, they don't have any decision-making power, so they don't want to talk to anyone. But they're willing to read things and forward them around. Yeah. So I think that the article "Cold Calling is Dead" does a disservice to everyone that reads it. I would say the phone is as relevant as ever. It just has company of the different ways that you can reach out, but ignore it at your own risk. As a matter of fact, the C-level and VP buyers across industries, they preferred the phone 57% of the time versus the average of 49. So it was just higher.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think these absolutist slogans are always, a number of years ago it was social selling, like all other selling is dead. Now it's all social selling. Now cold calling is dead. And it's interesting you say that because we did a panel discussion at the end of last year, and we put it out as a title, "Cold Calling Isn't Dead," because we had some people on who were cold calling experts. And it was one of the first times that in a marketing campaign for that panel discussion, we actually got replies to the marketing where people were very emotional in many ways, trying to say that this was nonsense, that cold calling was dead, even that we were even doing a panel discussion on it. So it's interesting how it's garnered that much emotional response. And as you say, like the people who are doing it well are probably taking a lot of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that it's, they're sort of laughing all the way to the bank.
Mm-hmm. So what else would you advise organizations? So if they read your white paper and they're looking at a strategy for this year, and maybe they relied too much on inbound or other tactics, how would you advise them to reassess their prospecting activities?
Mm-hmm. So first, we found that those that had an organized campaign to get through to someone, I don't mean marketing campaign,
Mm-hmm.
I'm me sitting at my desk. If I'm going to get through to senior vice president of operations at mid-sized to large company, I'm not just picking up the phone and pitching capabilities, and I'm not just sending them a quick email, and I'm not sending them a big long spam email, and I'm not just reaching out to them on LinkedIn. I have an orchestrated set of activities to draw them into the seduction, not of buying from me, but of just talking to me. So we call that an attraction campaign. More than 50% of the buyers said that they expect sellers to reach out to them 7+ times before they end up focusing on them or responding. And if any of those are spammy kinds of outreaches, they're not going to respond. But even if they're good outreaches, you have to reach out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So our suggestion is to craft attraction campaigns. Well, that has two parts. How often should I touch them and in what ways? And what should the messages be? Not of buying from my company, but what's going to make it worthwhile? What's the value proposition for a meeting? Another thing that we found in the research is the whole mental game of selling, is that the winner's mindset, the companies that supported their people for selling, that taught them the value of what they were selling, not just, oh, I got to make more calls because if I don't get my number, I'm fired, but that feeling of, if buyers aren't buying from me out there, they're missing out.
Right.
And it's contingent upon me as a professional to reach out. And if they don't buy from me, that's my communication challenge and my change management challenge, because I haven't been able to help them see that they could be getting better results if they engage with me versus not engage with me. That's my problem. That's my issue. And I'm going to go out and do it, not because I want to make more money, but because the world needs this.
Yeah.
So there's the creating the winner's mindset from the value perspective. Those value-driven respondents, but they really believed in the value, and the company leaders supported sellers to understanding and communicating the value, and they put value first. They just got a ton better results. And that did things like reducing call reluctance.
Mm-hmm.
Call reluctance is a well enough known quantity that psychologists have written books on the psychology of call reluctance. But even the most savvy sellers and the most senior sellers, when they have to pick up the phone or they have to start reaching out, sometimes they divert onto something else.
Sure.
When they get nervous and they don't want to do it. But getting over call reluctance and getting into that winner's mindset and establishing a rhythm of how you prospect and knowing your prospecting plans, that was huge. I think the level of distraction of the sellers these days, that they have so many other, when I first started, it was, here's your desk, computer. It's not connected to anything, but it's a computer.
Yep.
And you can type on it if you want, and then go print off a letter and mail it.
Yep.
And it was silent. And the clock ticks, and you don't have anything else to look at unless you go to the magazine bin. But now the amount of distraction and the hooks that all of these companies have in our brain to check our email and check our tests and checks and check our Facebook and check Slack and check LinkedIn and open up the Washington Post and read the sports stories. It's like it's all right there in front of us, distracting us. Yeah. So the ability to get people to focus and concentrate is just to execute prospecting. It's a lot bigger of a hill than it was in the past to climb. And those that make a systematic approach at it do a ton better. Yeah, no,
I agree with you. And I think, that's why, let's face it, everybody says nowadays, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so much busier than ever. And as you say, yeah, you may well be, but 70% of the things that you're busy doing may not actually be adding any value to your day, or maybe just things that if you organize better and you prioritize better and you focus better. So, I think that's a great message coming out of this as well, is the fact that it's hard work, it's creating value, it's focus, and it's realizing that you still should pick up the phone, you still should prospect, because buyers, if you approach them in the right way, still want to hear from you. So Mike, can you just tell the listeners and viewers here a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more about the RAIN Group, and how they can access this survey and learn more about you guys?
Sure. So RAIN Group, our focus and our mission is to unleash sales potential, and we do that by creating transformational experiences for our clients. It's a transformation in experience in terms of the training delivery, but also the results that we get. Our headquarters is in Boston. We have offices in Geneva, London, Mumbai, Sydney, Johannesburg, Toronto, and Bogota. And our offerings span the sales cycle, from consultative selling to advanced consultative selling, negotiation, opportunity management, as well as sales coaching, strategic account management. In terms of the research comes from the RAIN Group Center for Sales Research. You can go to raingroup.com, and the research as of tomorrow is going to be the top thing on our blog. But if you go to the white papers section or the research section of the website, and you'll be able to find this prospecting research, as well as sign up for other research alerts for when things come up.
Great. Listen, thanks, Mike. This has been fascinating and a good reminder, especially because it's at the beginning of the year. It's a good reminder is that you can prospect if you do it in the right way. And guess what? Buyers still want to hear from you. My name is John Golden, SalesPOP Online Sales Magazine and Pipeliner CRM. Another expert interview. We'll see you all again soon. Thank you.